Hello, and welcome to the Shea Hates Everything Podcast, where we talk about video games, movies, comics, and other shit that matters. My name is Shea, and today I hate how people get needlessly defensive when they hear an opinion different than their own.
And my name's Kyle. Today I hate people who sit on their porches and stare at you as you drive past them.
It's been a little longer than we had originally anticipated between episodes. We were going to go every other week, and now it's been every 3 weeks for this one. And I don't want to bury the lead here because there's like a justifiable reason for the delay, and that's because Kyle, you kind of bought a house and got engaged since we've last recorded. So
it was a big couple of weeks.
Yeah. So what's going on in your world? Because mine is the same and boring.
So it's just nonstop work. So the past several episodes I've complained about the house situation, how long it's taking. We finally got the closing done, and the house is ours. We had a lot of changes we wanted to make, which included painting the entire house, including all of the baseboard and trim. So that is all done apart from the kitchen now.
You didn't paint the outside of the house, did you?
No.
Just painting all the interior stuff. Okay.
No, the outside is a whole other problem for another week. But yeah, it's been a ridiculous amount of work. We bought a shit ton of furniture and have been assembling it, and her parents, yours and my parents, and my friends have all been really generous with their time and helping us bang it all out. So we bought the house, well, I don't know when this is going up, but the 31st of August. And so at the time of recording
July.
Of July. Sorry, this podcast isn't going up for like another 5 weeks. This was an 8-week hiatus. And so we've had the house for a grand total of, 7. I'll tell you, it's Thursday. Jesus Christ. 7.
It's been
like
about
11
2
days.
weeks.
Yeah, like a week and a half. Yeah. And we pretty much have it how we want it now. Like today. So, all right. So I texted you earlier today. Like, you're going to be annoyed at me again. Because every time I buy something, you have something to say about it. Because, like, how do you have money? Like, because I know you and Kelly, like, you guys save up and, like, very rarely splurge and buy something big. And Kara and I have to spend, like, here's money everywhere.
We get fucked all the time with, like, this random bullshit that comes up. Like, oh, sorry, out of the blue, we have to spend $1,000 on Kelly's car. Just, like, random shit like that. That's,
right.
Like, our life. But
yeah.
you guys have it nice and cushy, thus the house buying.
Well, because we had been saving up for like a whole year, and so we had a lot of money at the time of closing, and closing wound up only costing us like 2/3 what we thought it was going to. So we had a big extra chunk of money there that we had budgeted out for closing that we didn't need for that. So we've spent it all on a bunch of shit. So today, my purchase today. Because I have my big 47-inch Sony Bravia TV that I've had for several years now. I bought it like when it was brand new for like $700. And that's a good TV. Like, it has an okay picture. It doesn't have a lot of the features of new TV, but it has an okay picture, has a lot of inputs. So I was going to use that for our entertainment center in the living room. But then I realized that we only had that TV and the tiny little like 30-inch TV that I had bought Kara, who is now my fiance, a while ago for like her birthday or something.
And you have your like 30-some-inch tube TV, right?
Correct.
Which you use like for your
my retro games.
Yeah, exactly. You hook up your N64 or whatever to it.
Yeah, right now I'm gonna have my PlayStation 1, Genesis, and N64 hooked up to that, and then we were like, I want the big TV in the living room because it's the big TV.
Yeah.
And that's our entertainment center. But like that 30-inch TV, the size of our bedroom, like we're going to be squinting at it in bed trying to watch stuff.
And that's vital. A TV in the bedroom is vital. I can speak from experience. That was literally our first purchase when we moved in together, was buying a TV for the bedroom so that I could be out in the living room and she's in the bedroom. It is ceased so many fights between the two of us. That second TV is the most important purchase of our lives.
Yeah, well, because Kara, she falls asleep watching TV, which, of course, then, I have to stop watching an episode halfway through of whatever it is we're watching. But like that's just how we end every day together is we throw up Netflix or Crunchyroll or whatever it is. So like that's important to us to have that TV in there. And like a small little 30-inch thing from across a whole room, like that was not ideal. And I knew I could use her 30-inch TV somewhere in the office for like if a friend comes over, like they can bring their PS4 or whatever, and we can hook it up there. So I decided to do that and then kind of look around for TVs. And my buddy Cody, he sent me a text this morning. He was like, or actually it was late yesterday. I didn't get back to him till this morning. He was like, hey, there's a 4K 43-inch Insignia at Best Buy for $300. I was like, holy shit, a 4K TV for $300? And then I looked online and I was like, but there's also a 50-inch for $400. And so that's the one I bought.
Yeah, that's worthwhile purchase for sure.
Yeah.
And if it's $100 extra.
Yeah, I have a brand new 50-inch 4K TV in my living room. Everything is plugged into it. I have a 4-way HDMI switcher with a few things plugged in. My PS4 is not plugged into the switcher because that's the one I use the most, and I don't want to deal with like latency in the switcher and all that. So that's just plugged straight in. And then the Nintendo Switch was having some issues in the switcher, ironically. So that's just plugged in as well. But I have... All right, here's my setup.
Yeah,
so
man, hit me.
I have those IKEA shelves that are like those little square cubbies. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. And they're 2 cubbies by 4, so it's 8 cubbies total. It's a 2x4 thing. So I have 2 of those on the bottom, sideways. So it's 8 things long and 2 things tall. And then I have 2 more of them stacked vertically on the ends. So the ends are actually 1, 2... 6 tall by 2 wide, technically. And then the TV's in the middle. And it's like the perfect amount of space. And then I have a sound bar with a subwoofer in the back, and it's wonderful. So I have the 4-way HDMI switcher with my PlayStation 3, my Xbox One, and actually
PS4.
no, my Nintendo Switch is plugged into that. It was the other thing I was having an issue with. I just hooked this up, so it's all fresh in my mind, and I'm messing things up still. I have an AV switcher as well for my PlayStation 2 and my GameCube and Kara's Wii. Now that I have plugged, because this is a new 4K TV. It doesn't have AV or component or whatever.
Composite?
Correct.
It probably, okay.
It does not have composite. Yeah. It has AV sound output, but not composite video. So I have the AV switcher plugged into an AV to HDMI 1080p upscaler, a little box, and so then that outputs the composite signal into the TV through an HDMI, and it's upscaled, so it's just a little bit sharper, not by a whole lot. It does stretch it kind of oddly sometimes, but it's okay. It doesn't stretch it the full width of the screen, so it's not as bad. It kind of bars it in on the sides a little bit, so it's not as bad. But it does make it a little sharper, and it looks way better on that 4K TV. So I have those 3 consoles, the PS2, the GameCube, and the Wii plugged into that. And then that is my third HDMI input on the TV. So the whole setup from left to right, because I have those 8 cubbies, is PS2, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, GameCube, Wii, Switch, and in the last one we have the little metal thing, and it has all of our handheld consoles in it.
Cool.
So it's pretty dope. And underneath those, that's the second row. Underneath those are all baskets, and they all those baskets are filled with accessories and cords and controllers that correspond to those consoles. Now all the games are going to go on the sides that go up.
Okay, sure.
Games, DVDs, Blu-rays, all that kind of stuff. So we haven't gotten that put in there yet because that will take a great degree of time and organization that we have not had yet. But it's getting there. Also assembled our L couch, our corner couch that's in there as well. So the living room is effectively done, furniture-wise, which is a really good feeling.
Well, I don't know that it's done because you still need to get some like crazy, fancy backlights for those like IKEA little cubbies. You can get like your blue ones for the Sony with the green one for the Xbox.
That would be cool.
Yeah, man.
But really what I want to do, because behind the couch there's a little stretch of wall right by the front door that we have a cute table by, and it's got the subwoofer underneath it. But it's just this perfect little, like, 3-foot wide stretch of wall. And it would be perfect for one of those, those like strip lights where it's in the ceiling and it has like 3 spotlights things hanging out of it, and it kind of lights a little section.
It's a track light.
Track light. Thank you. There it is. Yeah, that's the term. It'd be perfect for one of those, and if we have like a picture of Kara and I or something. So, and I've not talked to her about this yet. But I did talk to her dad about it, and he thinks it's a great idea. So you know how couples always do like wedding pictures and stuff. Yeah. I want because she and I want to do a Renaissance wedding. So I want to be in a full suit of armor, and she'll be in like some custom medieval dress. And because we're fucking nerds, and I want to pose and like have it professionally done. I want to get a portrait done.
Okay.
Because that would be fucking awesome.
Yeah. Like an actual painting?
Yeah, an actual painting.
Yeah.
Kara's in the dining room right now laughing at me.
I'm not sure, like, that's fun in concept. I'm not sure if you're standing in a full suit of armor, like, under lights in a studio somewhere, that you're going to enjoy standing there for a portrait to be done of you.
I'm also wondering if they could take a picture and then paint the portrait off of the picture so we don't have to stand there the whole time?
No self-respecting artist would do that. The whole point of it is to capture the mood of the moment in the painting.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
You can't do that from a picture.
That's true. You got to bring it to life. It
loses the soul. They need to see inside of you.
They're like mirrors into the soul.
Yeah.
The eyes. Yeah, so I don't know. Lots of stuff going on. I have in my office. We picked a winner of a house in terms of like the furniture we wanted and how to set it up and everything. Because the garage was converted into a dining room and for us an office, for them a nursery. So there's no garage, which is a bummer, but the extra space is huge for us. So we have this nice big dining room, perfectly fits the table we got. Like board game shelves and stuff are already up and filled. We're working on a whiteboard wall, so we're painting a wall with whiteboard paint, and then you'll be able to dry erase marker on it and stuff. It needs a couple more coats still. And then our office, we've got these 3 huge bookshelves that are stacked with comics and books and all sorts of nerd paraphernalia. And then I've got my big wood-encased tube TV, and then Kara and I, we have these IKEA corner desks, and I have one corner desk, there's a middle extension, and then she has her corner desk, and it's like the perfect width right at the end of the room, so it takes up that whole wall, and it's awesome, and we have enough space so that finally we're not like bumping our chairs against each other like we were in the previous place. So it's going really well. It's been a crap load of work, and it's coming together really nicely, and I really want it to be done, and it's not. Yeah. It's not going to be done before I go back to work. I don't think it'll be close, but I don't think it's going to be, which is a bummer.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, because you own a home, you can like make it exactly how you want it, and since you guys are doing so much of the work yourselves, that gives you even more power. But it also makes it a lot more difficult. That's not an interest that I have. I know Kelly's very handy, and like she makes furniture, and she loves doing all that kind of stuff, and that is not my forte nor my interests. So it's going to be fun for us when we buy a house, the back and forth of like, do we get a fixer-upper where she's going to be doing a lot of work and I'm going to end up fucking something up, or do we get something that's a little more move-in ready, which is what I would prefer.
Sure, yeah, and I understand that, but like, also we have a lot of people here around us to help out, and you and Kelly have a few, but I don't know that some of the people you are friends with in your circle of friends necessarily have the what was the term I'm looking for, the skill set to work on a fixer-upper like some of my friends do. Like, 'cause I have friends in the theater business that are used to building sets and painting and stuff, so that was helpful. So
I'm trying to get to the core of what you're saying here. So are you saying, one, we don't have friends, or two, that our friends are just not as good as yours in general? Or both? Do we have no friends and the very few we do have suck? Is that what you're trying to say?
From what you've told me, this is a narrative built on anecdotes by you, Shea. So,
well, you know what? My friends, I'm sure, would be immensely offended by what you're saying, but I don't have any, so it's probably all right.
But no, like, because I think, I bet once you got going, because I think you're similar to me. I bet once you got going on that project stuff, like it's daunting to think about it ahead of time in terms of like scope and like, oh, there's so much I don't know and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's so much crap that I don't know either, but Google is your best friend and will have all of the answers for you. I did shock myself on an outlet, which wasn't great. And I'm sure, we all need a little spark in our life now and then.
These things happen.
But yeah.
But honestly, for me, it's not even so much the not knowing how. It's I'm not interested. Like, I don't enjoy the physical labor. I don't enjoy like getting dirty and being covered in like soot and wood and shit. That's just, I don't like that.
I mean, I don't enjoy that either. I'm not like
man kind of person.
Sawdust, yeah. Like,
yeah.
I'm not that way
like
either. But it's fun to create stuff. I think it's why people have kids, because like it's fun to create stuff.
I think it's a little different, but sure, at a core concept, yeah, I could see how those are similar. But I like the design side and the planning side. I just don't want to be the one to do it. Like, I want to like when you're talking about how you guys have your TV stuff set up, that sounds fun as hell. Imagining all that and kind of planning all of it. I don't want to do it though. Like, I want someone else to actually do it, and then I can just have it the way I want it.
Sure.
I'd rather pay somebody.
Well, there are people out there you can pay. That's for sure. They'll do it.
Yeah.
Hell, I'll do it.
But really, with all your video game stuff, or really the upgrade to the 4K TV begs the question. Then, are you gonna get like a PS4 Pro or an
fuck that?
An Xbox
One
One
X? That is a damn waste of money.
Then why else get the 4K TV?
I only got the 4K TV because it's like, I could get the 50-inch 4K TV, the new thing, for $400, or I could get like a 50-inch 1080p TV for like $270, $280. So it's really only like an extra $100, and it's the new shit that eventually will be supported by something that I get.
Right, the future proofing. That was the same methodology I had. Like when I had to buy a new TV when our moving service fucking broke mine. With just an old plasma TV I've had since college, 50-inch. Like just big plasma TV that was still working fine, but it certainly was old and it got broken, so I had an excuse to buy a new one. And it was like, okay, do I get another 1080p TV, or do I like get slightly smaller or not the brand I necessarily wanted to get the 4K? And I was like, I'll just go with that. So I just got like, I mean, it's a 55-inch, like the nicest 4K. I think it's a Vizio that I could find online. Yeah. And it was like, I think it was $550. So like, yeah, that's totally fine. When I bought my plasma TV way back, I guess this would have been in 2007 is when I bought it. It was $1,700.
Yeah, dude.
And now I got like
plasma, a
super nice, and it was an off-brand. It was like an Insignia. And now I got a nicer brand, higher quality, larger, for a third the price. It's absurd. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's like the thing about the brands are so much different now, because like the TV I just got was an Insignia. Insignia's not. Brands mean less and less now in the TV market because they're all so comparable.
Yeah, it's not a Sony or whatever else.
Right. And like you can. It used to be the case that brand names meant something in the TV market, but now it's like buying the Oakleys over the Walmart brand of sunglasses, right? Like there is sort of a difference in quality, but it's almost unnoticeable.
Yeah, it's more about that, just the brand name.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Which, like, I mean, if you care about that, fine, but I'd rather save the money.
Me too. Because inevitably I'm going to lose those sunglasses and then I'm going to have to buy another pair. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So, I also, in the office, I found out, God, this house is great. So I have enough space for VR. So I had said, I I got the Oculus stuff installed and all that. We're all good. We're good. And I bought CCTV camera ceiling mounts that have the same thread as the sensors. So I got 3 of those. So I have 2 sensors in the front corner of the office, each corner, and then 1 centered in the back. So I have my ceiling mounted VR sensors. And I just today got the cords necessary. I got a USB extension cord for one of them, and then an HDMI to DisplayPort converter cable for the headset, because I only have one HDMI port on my PC, and that's already being taken up by a DVI to HDMI cord. So I finally got all the cords necessary today. So when this podcast is done, I'm probably going to try and hook up VR and see if I can get her working.
Nice.
Because I bought that USB bus, PCI Express. So it's basically takes up one of the panels on the back of my computer, like where my graphics card would be. So I popped that out, threw it in, plugged it into the motherboard, plugged it into the power supply, and screwed it in, and it works beautifully. I installed the drivers and everything, and it's basically just 4 extra 3.0 USB ports on its own bus, so you don't get like a data overload, because you can really mess your shit up by putting too much data load on a single USB bus. Like, stuff will just stop working. So I got a brand new thing, so that's not an issue. Just like I think I'm all set and ready to go. Knock on wood. God, you'll probably get an angry text from me later. It's just like, this shit isn't working.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I am the last person in the world that could offer any sort of advice on how to make that shit work. Yeah. Like, when you just started talking about your USB bus, my eyes just glazed over instantly.
Yeah. But man, it's exciting, dude. And I wish, because I'm gonna get to see you this weekend, and I wish you were able to come see the house. But hopefully during Christmas time.
Yeah, and one of the very few blessings about living 500 miles away is, speaking of my not wanting to ever do physical labor, like, I don't have to help you do shit, which is like, it's a pretty good deal. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I would love to be able to see you more often, and I'd certainly want to see the new house and, congratulate you guys on getting engaged. But the upside of not having to lift shit and like paint is pretty good. So
living it up.
Yeah. But I actually have some relatively exciting news. It's not like quite buying a house and getting engaged, but it is very, very exciting.
What's going on?
Fantasy football starts soon.
Oh.
No, and that's not something that we're going to dive into on this podcast, because I know you certainly could care less. But it is like, this will be the 3rd year that I've done fantasy football with our little group. And for anybody listening that knows about it generally, there are 8 of us that do it, and this year we're going to expand to 10 people. I convinced our dad to do it this year, and this will be his first time, so I'm sure it'll be nice and embarrassing for him. He'll probably win like 1 game. But I won the league the first year, and then last year I got really unlucky with a lot of my good players getting hurt. Like, I lost literally my top 3 players. I lost weeks 1, 2, and 3 of last season, and I ended up like scraping it together, and I still made the top 4. I made our little playoffs, but I ended up in 4th place, so I was really disappointed with that. But it's just like fantasy football hits so many of the things that I really like. It's super competitive, and it takes a lot of research in order to, do well in a competitive league. And like, I like, ranking my guys, setting up the matchups, and it's a bit like, it's not so much like chess, because you're not like counter moving to what your, the other player is doing, but it takes a lot of like competitive knowledge. And so I just really enjoy all of that. And so I've been listening to my fantasy football podcasts. I've been doing some like mock drafts to get my guys get prepped. So I'm pumped, man. Nice. Fantasy football. And even besides fantasy football, just regular football being back. Football's fun. It's easy to watch. It's a good time. And I don't have cable, so I'm going to be going over to my father-in-law's like at least a couple Sundays a month to watch some games. Football season. It's the best season. But one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about before we kind of dive into what we've been doing recently, and I know your list is relatively short because we just covered most of what you've been doing recently.
Exactly, yeah.
But I've been thinking about this a lot, and Kelly and I have had many discussions about it. So what do you do for your caffeine hit in the morning?
In the morning?
Well, yes. We have well covered the fact that you drink like 8 sodas a day and you're going to die before you hit 30. We've talked about that to death. I wish you would dial back, but I'm not your parent. I'm not going to force you. But do you drink coffee? Do you drink energy drinks? Do you do anything like in the morning to get that like early morning rush, especially like working in a school with kids? If it were me, I would definitely need like a caffeine hit.
No, actually during the school year, I bring a water to work and I drink that in the morning, and then at lunch is when I get my soda.
You're a crazy person. Like,
yeah, well, so, here's the tough part. If I consume anything in the morning, my stomach will hate me for like a good 3 hours until lunchtime. So I just do water, occasionally like a granola bar type thing until lunch.
Right.
But if I kind of do anything other than that, my stomach is really not happy with me.
That makes sense.
The only time I do like energy drinks or coffee in the morning is when it's like show week at the high school. So like I have to get up extra early. I need to like go from minute one. I'll like run to Starbucks and grab like a mocha, or I'll bring a Monster or something.
But on average, those are pretty
mornings,
interchangeable for you. You don't really like prefer a coffee over an energy drink.
I would probably rather have the Monster just because like the mocha's good, but too much of that really makes me sick of them.
Well, and I mean, like something like Starbucks barely constitutes coffee in the first place.
Yeah. And I will drink coffee if it is there, and I go, I haven't had coffee in a while. Maybe I'll have a coffee. But I don't seek it out on my own. I would rather do the mocha thing instead of the coffee. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't want to go to Starbucks just because it's so expensive. And also, like at my work, they have a little Keurig like K-Cup pre-made thing. Okay. And so I get like free coffee every day, and it's high quality coffee. It's not like made in a coffee pot kind of coffee. And so I want to take advantage of it. I just hate coffee. I just don't think it tastes good. And even like I'll go get special kinds of creamers and stuff. I recently got it's a Hershey's chocolate caramel creamer, which sounds mind-blowingly amazing, but it's still, if you put chocolate in garbage, it's still gonna taste like chocolate garbage. That's my logic. And I try, man, because because energy drinks, I know they're so terrible for you, and I'll buy ones that have like 0 calories or 0 added sugars or whatever else, more trying to get a little more like of natural ginseng and taurine and like the natural supplements for energy, but I know they're so bad for you, especially compared to coffee, which isn't nearly as bad unless you're putting in like a shit ton of sugar. Because Kelly drinks tons of coffee. Like that's her thing. She obviously doesn't like energy drinks at all, and so she just drinks coffee every morning. And so she tries to get me to drink it, and I'll try at least like once or twice a week. I'll suffer through. Like tomorrow, I don't have any energy drinks in the fridge, and I don't want to buy more, so I'll just wait. I'll just drink coffee in the morning, and I'm gonna fucking hate it, but I'll do it. And it just bums me out because coffee, everyone's like, well, it's an acquired taste. I'm like, yeah, but why the hell would I want to acquire it? If I have this other thing that already tastes good, why do I need to acquire a taste for coffee? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I put some creamer and sugar in mine when I have it. And I would say those tiny little styrofoam cups, that's about the perfect amount. And maybe even just like 3/4 of that. And then
it just doesn't do enough for me because like, I mean, I'm with you. I don't drink like a big cup because I don't enjoy it, but it doesn't do enough for me like on the caffeine side to really get me up and thinking. Like one of the reasons I like the energy drinks is because if you buy a Monster or whatever other brand, they're large, like they're in like 20-ounce or larger cans. Like that, I drink that throughout the whole morning. And a lot of other people drink multiple cups of coffee. But again, like if I don't like it, the more I need to drink, you're just making the deal sound worse.
Right.
Like if I just had to take a shot of coffee and it gave me as much energy as a full like can of Monster, sure, I'll suffer through that. I'll take a shot of garbage for some caffeine. But if I have to drink like 4 cups of coffee in the morning, no. Plus, it's hot, and it's hot outside. I don't want to drink a hot liquid when I'm already sweating.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad. Coffee's the worst. It's terrible. I will never get on that bandwagon. But anyway, so that's been on my mind, because Kelly keeps, like... And I get it. She wants me to be healthy. She doesn't want me to die. She doesn't want me to get diabetes. So I get why. Like, her intentions are good. I just can't. I can't do it with the coffee. I can't. And I'm already dreading tomorrow morning. Because I'm going to drink some coffee, it's going to suck ass, and then I'm still going to be tired all day, so it's going to take away the entire point. Anyway, let's move on. So, as far as kind of what we've been up to recently, playing, watching, reading different kinds of stuff, I'm going to jump in, because my list is like way longer than yours.
Yeah, go for it.
So, and part of it's because it's been 3 weeks, but... There are 2 main things that are kind of like constantly in my mind right now. One, which I mentioned on the last episode, we paid for HBO Now so we could stream Game of Thrones as it's happening. So we're paying the like $15 a month, which is an insane price to have to pay for that service. But it is what it is. Just for 2 months, like fine. And because of that, we're trying to watch as much stuff on that, like on HBO products as possible to get the most from our money. So I mentioned, obviously, in addition to Game of Thrones, we started watching Westworld, which we talked about last episode.
Yeah.
It's like a futuristic Western where the people that live there are robots and it's blah, blah, blah. So we had watched the first 3 episodes, and we started watching episode 4. And about 20 minutes in, Kelly paused it, and she looked over and she was like, "Are you enjoying this?" And I was like, "Nope." She's like, "Then why the fuck are we watching this?" So we turned it off, and we started watching The Leftovers, which is amazing. But just to wrap up the thoughts on Westworld, things just move really slowly in that show, and like the initial concept setup is very strong. Like a bunch of animatronic, semi-sentient robots living in a Western village. Like that sounds really cool and like a mashup of a lot of really cool things.
Yeah.
But they play the mystery too much, and like it's very slow. Of like, oh, some of these they're not. What are they? They're not like robots. I guess they would technically be like. They're not cyborgs either, because those are like cybernetically enhanced people. I don't know what the fuck you would call them. But these like robot thingies are starting to wake up and become sentient and get like real consciousness. And it's just taking too long. And so like every episode feels kind of the same, where like one of them will have an episode and then the real human beings behind everything will try to figure out why. And then like it's super mysterious of like, oh, the robot, when they go back, did they really fix the problem? Or is the robot pretending to have been fixed? And it's kind of just like that over and over again. And we just got bored, to be honest. And like, it's one of those shows where I totally can believe that it will get really cool towards the end of the season, and the show is of a high quality. The production value is really good. The acting is very good. The writing, like between the characters, the dialogue is all pretty strong. It's just the way the story is being told, and they're not really making the most of the concept, in my opinion. But again, like I'm sure it's of a high quality. The thing's nominated for literally 22 Emmy Awards. So clearly, like, it's a quote-unquote good show. I just can't get into it, and there's so much other stuff I want to watch that I'm not willing to put in, like, 4 more hours to finally start getting a payoff, which is why we switched to The Leftovers, which is a show I've been tracking for a long time. And I think it actually just ended, and there's only 3 seasons, a very short show. Like, the first season was, I think, 8 episodes, and then, like, 10 and 13, maybe, something around that.
Okay.
But it's a drama as well, and it's basically, the concept of that is, it's real life, it's taking place in quote-unquote modern day, where all of a sudden, I think it's 3% of the population disappears. Like, Rapture kind of disappears. Like,
okay.
You're talking to them in one moment, you look away, you
and
look back,
vanish.
and they're gone.
Yeah.
And so the show takes place 3 years after that happens. And so, like, hasn't been any real explanation. Like, no one's figured out why it happened, because it wasn't a traditional rapture like we think of it biblically, where God takes his chosen people to heaven or whatever, because they make a lot of jokes in the show of, like, it wasn't just good people that got raptured. Like, they talk about some of the celebrities, and you know, I'm making these up off the top of my head, but it was like Oprah got raptured, the Pope got raptured, Gary Busey got raptured. And so it's like, it's not necessarily like the best humans are the ones that got taken. It just seems totally random. Some babies did, murderers did, like this one dude who's a pedophile did. So like, there seems to be no rhyme or reason, and people have just had to move on with their lives without that ever being explained. And my initial reaction was like, I feel like people kind of are overreacting to this after having it. The fact that it had been 3 years and clearly, like, society had not moved past this. And I was like, that's kind of a long time. Like, I feel like, you know, like when 9/11 happened, it was such a touchstone moment in my life, like as a kid being at school and experiencing, like, it was our generation's Pearl Harbor sort of thing. But like, it's been 17 years since then. It's still like a tragedy, and like I try to take a moment when you know, that's coming up next month. Like, I try to take a moment and think and self-reflect when it happens, but like I don't spend time sitting and thinking about it anymore. No. And so I'm like, I feel like that would happen with these people too. Like, I feel like society would kind of move on, but the more I thought about it, like if you think about it, I think it was 3% of the world's population, which is still like over 150 million people. Sure. And so every single person that is left, someone they know would have been taken. Whether it was a wife or a kid or a cousin or a friend or a coworker, everybody in the world knows someone that was taken, and that there's been no explanation for it. So people have been like trying to come up with their own theories, and there are like myriad cults like that have different explanations for why this happened. And that's kind of a big story on the show, where our main character, he's a small town cop. He's the chief of police. His wife left to go join this other cult. His son is a part of a different cult, and his daughter's kind of trying to deal with it in her own way. So like, that's a big story on the show. And I guess like when I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I feel like this would really like fuck up the world if something like that happened, where there's no possible reasoning behind it, and you're just kind of like have to live knowing that you will never understand why this happened. And I'm sure because it's a TV show, like we'll start to learn a little bit more, and there's stuff going on with our main character, like he's having visions, and people are like speaking to him in his mind, and he's seeing people he doesn't really think exist in the real world, like that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Which I'm sure we'll learn more. Like, I think Kelly and I, we're like 4 or 5 episodes in, but the show is really, really fantastic, really well acted and written, and like it's an example against Westworld of like, this show makes the most of its concept. It is very mysterious, but the mystery is secondary to the characters and the relationships and what they're going through in their lives. Whereas something like Westworld, it's all concept. It's all mystery. Like, there's very little real story in the show. So those two were like, obviously because I watched one right after the other, but they've really been butting heads against each other in my mind. So if anyone out there is looking for a show, I would recommend Leftovers and not Westworld. But another show, which I know I texted you about after I started watching it, and you shot me down because you're a dick, is Silicon Valley. Yeah. And I know you had watched a couple episodes and you weren't super into it, which is fine. I'm not judging you.
Yeah, I think I've seen like 4 episodes.
But here's the thing, man, and I tried to explain this to you too, was it's not an episodic show. It's a serialized show where the story is told from episode 1 to 10 every season. And really, like, there are cliffhangers that happen at the end of seasons and things that tie together, but it really is like one long story. And so watching some random episodes, like, you're not going to get anything out of that, which I'm not sure if that's how you watched it or if like you literally watched the first 4 episodes.
I don't remember. I know my buddy Cody showed it to me. So I don't know if he showed me the first 4 or if he showed me like the first one and then a later one. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, like, that show is fucking amazing. And it's been on my radar since it first came out because the whole concept, it takes place in Silicon Valley in California. It's about a startup tech company. They're developing this new app, blah, 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 similar to real life in Silicon Valley, and kind of like all their struggles they're going through with trying to get funding, and, you know, big powerful companies come in and try to buy them out. There's a Google affiliate company called Hooli, where like they're the big, huge company that, you know, $100 billion company that tries to steal their idea, and like all that kind of stuff that you would expect on a show like this. But it's mostly like the sense of the humor and the characters just really speak to me personally. And I made a mention, I did a review of the first episode, or the first season rather, and I made a mention in the review of like, I think it's like the second episode, they referenced the ending to Mass Effect 3 as like an insult about something, and that's when I was like, yes. Like, this show gets me. If you're gonna reference Mass Effect 3, like, for its intended audience, like that specific of a reference just really, really nails it down. And to me, like, this show is Big Bang Theory, but good. Because Big Bang Theory is like everything I fucking hate about how people look at quote-unquote nerd culture. It's the outside looking in. Yes, pointing and laughing. Like, oh, look how weird all these people are. Aren't they so weird? And that fucking pisses me off so much. That show is complete, utter trash. Besides just being really unfunny. And nothing against the actors on it. There are a lot of talented actors on that show. But that show is hot fucking garbage. Silicon Valley is so smart and clearly comes from a place of love and knowledge and experience in this world where, like, you feel like they know what the hell they're talking about and not pointing and laughing. Like, all the characters, you know, it's TV, so they're heightened, and some of them are, you know, archetypal sorts of characters, and there are certain things where it's like, I don't believe for a second that would actually happen in real life because it's a TV show, but it feels so much more grounded than a show like Big Bang Theory and not played for laughs. They're just really funny characters, and particularly TJ Miller, who I've loved for a really long time, is like so brilliant on that show. And same thing with Martin Starr, who I really liked way back in the day on the show Party Down that he was in with Adam Scott. That show was amazing too, which really spoke to me because those characters several of them were struggling actors that were working a catering job to like make money and try to make their whole acting dream happen. So obviously that spoke to me on a personal level. But Silicon Valley, man, that show's fucking amazing. I marathoned the first 3 seasons literally in, I finished it last night, so it would have been 12 days. So I marathoned the first 3 seasons in 12 days. So good. And I can't wait to start season 4. So, yeah. Beyond that,
just a small aside. While you were talking, and it distracted me. You know, there's like Steam notifications that pop up when one of your friends start playing. Okay. I don't know who this person is because I think they changed their name. But like, you're talking about Silicon Valley and all that. It was interesting, and I was listening, and then I just see like this tiny little thing pop up in the corner. Long Dong Silver started playing Dota 2. And I was just trying to keep it together, man.
Well, I appreciate all the attention you're giving me.
Yeah. You know, like, okay, so what is Silicon Valley on? Is that Hulu or HBO or what?
It's HBO.
Okay. Yeah, see, I'll probably never get to watch it then because I'm not going to.
Yeah, and it's one of those things because, like, yes, HBO is such a premium service, and they have their own streaming platform, obviously, now. And, I mean, $15 a month is a lot to ask for that kind of service. But the quality of their stuff, by and large, is so far above a lot of other networks, and especially, like, the big 4 networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox being the big 4 kind of cable or local networks. Just the quality of their stuff is so high that since we're already paying for it, it's definitely worth watching. And if I find more shows, like there are several other shows on there that I really want to get into. Vice Principals is a big one, starring Danny McBride. And they have another one, Veep, with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, that I know Kelly really wants to watch. That's like has several seasons, multiple Emmy Award-winning show. So like, if we can find enough things to keep us on there, we may pay for it for another month or two, but it's definitely not something that we're going to pay for indefinitely, because that's just $15 a month is a lot. Compared to something like Netflix, which is cheaper and has a near infinite amount of shows and movies, in addition to all of their awesome original content. So,
Right. It's a big ask. And, so maybe it's a case where is Silicon Valley still ongoing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they just announced season 5, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah.
But maybe it's a case where, like, if I feel like watching that or looking into that, then it's something I buy on Blu-ray, like a collection of the whole thing, down the road.
Right. And, I mean, one of the things it's tough with that show because it is so good and I'm really enjoying the ride. And it's like an underdog kind of a story. And it becomes difficult because these guys are talking about literally millions of dollars that they'll get funded for and spend to try to get this thing to happen. And something will happen where it gets fucked up and they're going to lose their funding. And like, that's kind of the general arc of these things. And it's really engaging. But, part of the problem I foresee long-term for that show is the way they have to keep resetting to like keep them from hitting that full success to keep the show going. I fear will eventually start to get old because I don't know what the plan is for that show, if they want to go 10 seasons or if they're only planning on doing 5 or 6 or whatever else.
Right.
I hope so many times really high quality shows go on too long, and I really hope that doesn't happen with this one. But even if it kind of does with the story, I just love the characters so much, and they're just all so funny that I'll be along for the ride. So I mentioned 2 big things that were causing me to watch a lot of stuff. One being us paying for HBO, and 2 being just my want and desire to watch more movies this year. I used to, especially in college and even back to high school, I was really, really up to date on movies, and I would watch, 30, 40, sometimes 50 movies every year and really being in the conversation when Best Picture came out. Like, I had seen all of the nominees and I really made an effort to do that. And since I've gotten, busier with real life shit, that just doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
And so I wanted to make a conscious effort this year to watch a lot more movies. And so I've been trying to I haven't really been doing a great job of it, but I actually took a little staycation from work a little bit ago and just took a Thursday, Friday off and just hung out at home for 4 days. Took like a little nice long weekend, and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. But I also watched a couple movies in that time. So I watched The Lost City of Z, which stars Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy, and it's based on a true story, which was then turned into a book, now a movie. About this British explorer back in the 1920s when they were first exploring the Amazon rainforest and and really and exploring Mexico and really just South America in general. And this is around the time when Machu Picchu was discovered, and they were learn more about the Mayans and the Aztecs and all these ancient civilizations that at the time they're a bunch of native savages. There's no civilizations here. There's no society here. It's like these little tribal cults. And they come to find out oh shit, no, there were real civilizations akin to a South American Rome. And so this follows one of the guys that was exploring it, looking for this quote unquote lost city of Z. And it's not a great movie, to be honest with you. After all the description and build up, it's really slow. I really like Charlie Hunnam, and it bums me out that he didn't kind of explode after Sons of Anarchy. And he was in Pacific Rim with Guillermo del Toro, and that movie didn't set the world on fire the way it kind of seemed like it might. And he's in some
Arthur King Arthur or something.
It's a Guy Ritchie movie. Yeah, I mean, it was a flop, unfortunately, and it didn't really look that great. I do want to see it because Guy Ritchie's very hit or miss, but when he hits, he really hits. But yeah, it certainly didn't set the world on fire. But I mean, being the lead in a Guy Ritchie movie is a pretty good thing.
A feather in a cap, yeah.
And my opinion of The Lost City of Z is definitely more negative. There have been plenty of people saying that it is good. So I mean, people that are interested in the concept make your own decision about it.
So I just thought that it's modern, and he's going and looking. Oh, okay, this is a classic.
Yes, it takes place in the 1920s.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that did bug me a little bit about Charlie Hunnam's performance. He felt a little too modern to me, his mannerisms and the way he spoke.
Sure.
Which, to be completely fair, it could be because I'm so used to him from Sons of Anarchy, a show that I've watched the entire thing through at least 3 times. I love that show. So it could totally be my own personal bias, but it did feel he felt a little out of place compared to some of the other characters. The larger thing is that it was just a really slow burn kind of a movie, and the visuals were really stunning, like when they're in the Amazon and exploring and like going down the river, and you know, a bunch of random shit happens and they interact with some of the native tribes, and a lot of that's very cool to witness. It's just like the momentum of the story, it's very slow paced, which kind of lost me after a while. Weirdly, Tom Holland, the now Spider-Man, is in that movie as Charlie Hunnam's son, and this was filmed before he was Spider-Man. So like this is before he became, you know, basically an A-list star now at this point. So it's just interesting to see him play like this small character that just has a couple lines. It's just weird because the timing is so close to one another that it's like, it's kind of jarring. It's like going back and watching, you know, Platoon, which Johnny Depp is in, and he has like a line. I think it's his first ever on-screen appearance. Right. And it's just weird to see that kind of thing. But I mean, it's for people that like more artistic movies, it's probably worth a watch. I didn't get a ton out of it. I also watched Logan. Have you seen it?
I still need to watch it. I really want to.
Yeah, and I mean, my opinion on the X-Men movies is so up and down. You know,
absolutely. I mean, there are some totally passable ones, and there are some garbage heaps of movies.
And you know, I don't think that any of them are phenomenal. I mean, the best X-Men even adjacent movie is Deadpool, which was really good. But like, the first X-Men's pretty good. The second one's okay. Or the second one's better than the first, I should say. The third one is complete garbage. And then the recent trilogy, the like
those have been
whatever
okay.
it was.
They're going on too long. Like I think there should have been like one of those.
Yeah. Like, First Class I thought was okay. Days of Future Past I liked less. And then Apocalypse I actually thought was pretty bad. And then there's, you know, X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And then there was The Wolverine, which was the standalone movie, just with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, which is like a separate story that takes place in Japan, which I actually thought was pretty good. And it's the same director, I'm almost positive, of that movie that directed Logan. And Logan was like really, really good. Like, I was surprised.
Nice.
It wasn't like I'm not gonna compare it as like one of my favorite movies I saw this year necessarily, but for it being an X-Men movie is really, really good. I was very pleasantly surprised. From the trailers, it looked like this more emotional take on the character, this more like emotional road trip journey with Wolverine and
that's definitely
Professor
what
X.
I feel about it.
And that's totally what it is. It's like there's certainly still action to be had, but it's more so just a character study of Wolverine late in his life, because it exists, you know, in the X-Men universe in the near future where basically all the mutants have been wiped out by the government. And Wolverine is like hiding with Professor X, who has a degenerative brain disease, which, considering his telepathic powers, not having control over his thoughts makes it a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, he's so like basically a WMD.
Yes, exactly. And they actually, like, Wolverine, I should say, like, locks him up because there was this big event that happens before the events of the movie where, like, hundreds of people were like hurt or killed based upon something happening in his brain. So they're like trying to seclude him. So the whole like original story is Wolverine trying to save up money to get them a boat to just go out in the sea and live the rest of their lives there. And in the course of it, he gets dragged into another story with a young mutant who was created by the government based on DNA from the old X-Men. So this is how they introduced the X-23 character from the comics. And in the movie, she was created using Wolverine's DNA. And so it's basically like him trying to get her, he's trying to save her from the people chasing her and get her to kind of like the quote unquote promised land in Canada, which is also where his character's from. So it's kind of like a full circle sort of thing. And like, it was just a very emotional movie for it being X-Men. Like, right. I was really shocked. But it's super good. Though. I mean, I as far as like the core X-Men movies go, taking Deadpool out of the equation, it's easily the best that I've seen. So definitely highly recommend that one. And then finally, which we talked a little bit last time that you had seen, we went and saw Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Which I'm still kind of processing because like it's just a weird movie.
I thought so too. I liked it though. I know I liked it.
Yeah. I think it's like super artistic, and I mean Christopher Nolan doing like what he does best with his cinematography and his like use of music in the movie is like off the charts. And I also I think I liked that there's not really like a huge through line story. It's mostly just like characters, like these guys are stuck on the beach and they're trying to get home. And that's the whole movie, is them trying to get home to Britain. And I didn't expect that. And it kind of like shook me a little bit, because it was a bunch of micro stories almost between these different characters, and they eventually sort of converge at the end. It was just, I don't know, it felt weird to me. And I guess it's just because I'm so used to like traditional narrative and like these big action blockbusters. And this really like bucked that so much that I was kind of taken aback. But I think I really liked it.
Yeah. So I it was explained to me, the numbers at the beginning.
Yes, that's how they relate to each other. So, I mean, and this is, a very small spoiler for the movie, and it's in the beginning of it. So they kind of frame... maybe we don't even want to talk about this for people that haven't seen it. Whatever.
Well, okay, so if anyone hasn't seen it, this might actually just be helpful to know.
Yeah, that's true too. So they kind of frame, because there are multiple stories happening during the movie from different perspectives, and they frame it in the beginning. It'll say like, I'm making this up, but it'll say like the beach, 1 hour, and then you're seeing a scene happening there, and it'll show you'll cut to Tom Hardy, who plays a pilot, and it'll be like the pilot 1 week, and then it'll show his scene there. And when you're watching it at first, I didn't get it because it wasn't as obvious as like the beach or the pilot. It was like metaphors.
Yeah.
And then like 1 hour or 1 day or a week or whatever it was. And I didn't put the pieces together. Eventually, once they start showing it, you realize that it's because everything you're seeing isn't happening at the same time. Like what's happening on the beach is a week ahead of what's happening with the pilot, like for example, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it wasn't that clear. There was a very obvious moment where I put the pieces together, which I believe that moment was intentional. When it happens in the movie, I wasn't a huge fan of the way that was presented up top. I feel like it caused confusion that wasn't necessary.
I agree.
I don't know. How did you feel about it?
I mean, well, okay, so if they hadn't done that, what's to separate this from any other kind of war movie, So I understand why he was wanting to lend it some artistic flair, or like make it a little different and give it a little something. I just don't know that it was executed particularly well.
And I don't have a problem with it, the stories not happening at the same time. It was purely how that was communicated to the audience. I thought was confusing, and it didn't, like, the way that it was presented, I didn't think added any value, even if I had been able to figure it out early. Because if the whole point was to wait and have that reveal happen midway through, fine. But I think, for my personal opinion, I think that was a mistake. I think from the beginning it should have been established when things were happening, and it really, because they start to get closer and closer together to the climax when everything's happening at once, and that some of the impact I think was lost the way that it was presented. But my biggest takeaway about it was the music, which I know you talked about last time, and like literally the entire movie, there's like a tick, 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 tick,
and you don't notice it until it stops.
Right, literally the entire movie, and there's actual score that comes in and out, and they do different things with that ticking, but it's there the entire time. And I'm kind of two minds. Like, I thought it was really powerful, and so on the positive side, it just has this constant tension that's there, because you're just waiting for shit to go bad, because it goes bad a lot. Like, these poor guys like never get a break, but it really sells that tension of like them just waiting to fucking die, and that I really liked. I mean, liked is kind of a weird word to use in that sense, but I it was effective. Got that. It put me in those circumstances. But on the other side, and I talked about this in my review too, because at the end of the day, I'm a moviegoer watching this sitting in a leather chair in a theater. Like, I'm never going to be 100% with those characters. And so because it was so constant the whole time, I eventually got a little bit numb to it towards the end. And there's a really effective moment at the end where the music cuts out and you get that release, and it totally was perfect for the way that it was in the movie, the way that it was done. But I almost feel like if had there been one or two other moments in the movie where it seemed like things were okay, if they would have cut it there and then it comes back, or like they cut it and then an explosion happens or whatever else, I almost feel like that would have been more effective and keep me noticing the tension versus like becoming a little numb to it.
Okay.
But at that point, I'm like trying to redirect Christopher Nolan, who is arguably one of the best directors alive. So like, that's just, that's from someone with very little directing experience. That's how I would have done it, because people should care.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with you on that though, because if you, the whole point of it is that you notice it at the beginning, it's a ticking, but then you become invested and you don't notice it. It's subconsciously creating tension in the moment for you, and then so when it stops, it's this like physical release of pressure for the watcher. And so if you try to restart that, I don't think you can recapture that at any point in the movie. I don't think that's something that works necessarily.
And maybe my viewing experience wasn't the same, because I definitely had plenty of times where I wasn't consciously thinking about the ticking, but I was noticing it a lot. Like, it didn't just fade into the background for me.
Interesting.
I definitely was with it like the whole time, and I don't know why that is, if it's my like OCD tendencies or my percussion experience or what, but like I was definitely with the ticking a lot. And so at least for me, I think it would have been more effective.
Well, and
if
you are
cut it out
definitely
maybe one or two times.
You're more analytical when you watch movies as well, and I sometimes make a conscious effort to kind of enjoy the ride and just stay along with it and everything, you know. So maybe that was a part of it too, because I think you in general think about the movie you're watching more than I do while you're watching it.
Interesting, though, that you said you make a conscious effort to not pay attention.
I do, yeah.
I feel like those things...
You have
like
to kind of trick yourself into it, you know?
Yeah.
Because I will get really sidetracked with stuff and, you know, not focus on what I'm supposed to be focusing on in the scene. I'll do that a lot. And so, you know, before the movie, I kind of have to psych myself up into it and kind of really settle in. So I like to get there like a few minutes early if I can, and then just kind of really settle back. And that's why those recliners are perfect for that.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I've been playing some games too, but because I've been going on and on for a while, let's jump to you. So I know you've played a little bit more Fortnite, so I'm curious to hear if your thoughts have changed on that at all.
Not at all. It's still really awesome. And we're still really having a good time with it. I don't know what my time counter is on it yet. I don't know how to check that on the Gearbox launcher, but I've played a lot of Fortnite, and I'm still going in for those daily rewards. And you know, my computer wasn't hooked up for a day, so I didn't get the daily on that day. I missed out on one. I could be a day ahead, but.
And what do you get from those? You just get like a loot box?
Yeah, so like there's XP that you get for like upgrading different types of stuff. There's different XP, like schematic XP for things that you create, survivor XP, hero XP, yada yada. And so some rewards are those. Some rewards are things that you use to evolve items. So let's say you have a common item that can only get to level 10. You can't evolve it. If you have an uncommon, that will allow you to evolve it once up to levels 11 to 20, right? And if you have a legendary, it's like even higher and higher and higher and all these evolutions. But you also have to be far enough along in your skill tree to evolve certain types of weapons and stuff. So it's like kind of, and I think it's balanced pretty well in that respect, because I was solely focusing on one gun, and then I hit a wall where I can't evolve it anymore. I have the items and the XP for it, but not the skill. So then that forced me to like, oh, I should probably like be upgrading some of my traps and stuff too. So I did that too, and that's taken a bunch of time. And so I think it's balanced out pretty well. But cool. You know, you'll get some of those items that you need to evolve them, like pure drops of rain and other random shit. You'll get those. You'll get like the llama packs, the loot boxes equivalent. You'll get some of those. You'll get currency every now and then. You know, they just kind of throw stuff at you every day, and then every 7 days you get every seventh day you get like a bigger reward out of it, like a loot box. So it's always a steady little trickle, and they have new daily quests that pop up that you can do, and those give you currency, and the currency can be used to buy more packs and so on and so forth. So it's got a pretty good loop, and I'll do a few missions and I'll fill up all of my materials and get a bunch of traps that were dropped as like loot around the levels, and then I'll go back to my base, add them to my base, build it up, repair stuff, and I'll kind of do that a few times, and then I'll do a big wave base thing and fucking fail because where I'm at right now is insanely hard, and then build it all back up, and so it's got a good loop. There's a lot of stuff going on still, but I feel like I have grasped the scope of it pretty well. Because I was just in the first area before, but little did I realize there are several areas that you go to, so it's a pretty big game when you get down to brass tacks. But still playing the hell out of that and enjoying it. That's all I've really had much time for. I should say that's all I've made time for.
Right, sure. I guess because I'm still plugging away at Final Fantasy 12. I actually played a little bit of that last night. Still enjoying it. I'll have like more complete thoughts once I get through it and finish it. But it's one of those games where like if I want to kill an hour or like listen to a podcast, I'll just throw that on, turn the volume off, put the fast forward mode on, and just grind out and listen to a podcast. So it's a good relaxation game.
Yeah.
But also in my little staycation, I had put out in the Giant Bomb group on Facebook just like recommendations of like, hey, here are a bunch of the backlog games that I have. What should I play? And overwhelmingly, everybody was like, you need to play Bastion, because I had never played it. I played Transistor and liked it. I didn't think it was perfect, but I liked a lot of pieces of it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to check out Bastion, and I don't know, man. Like I get why people would enjoy it. It wasn't super grabbing me. Though the world is interesting, and it's a problem I have with Transistor too. Like the storytelling is a little too obtuse, and like honestly, it's not even so much as obtuse. Like there's just not a ton of story there. It's just kind of like world building and like the setting itself. I don't know. The story of it wasn't really grabbing me, and I thought the combat was pretty fun, and I liked it's very customizable, like what weapons you want to take in and upgrade and use, and so I liked all of that. But I felt like it was getting a bit repetitive at times, and I checked according to like how long it's supposed to take to beat. I was about halfway through it, so maybe things like drastically changed from a combat perspective late in the game. But I don't know. It's one of those where like I totally respect why people enjoy it, and I think it's good. There wasn't enough there that was super grabbing me, so I kind of got burnt out, and I picked up Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, which I played the original Tomb Raider on PS3 back when it came out, and it was like 2013. It was one of my favorite games that year, and I never got around to playing Rise of the Tomb Raider. And so I want to play that in the near future. And I was like, you know what? I really like Tomb Raider. I got the Definitive Edition on PS4 for free from PlayStation Plus. Let me play that. And the game's still good. The graphics don't hold up like amazingly well, even for it having been ported and upgraded to PS4. The game doesn't look that great, and they added like hair physics for Lara, which I actually think are bad. But one of the other things that like jumped out at me, which I don't remember from the original game, so I wonder if it was like a something about the port that they adjusted, but the camera's really bad in this version that I played. Like you can manipulate it with the right joystick, but it's set in like a cinematic angle in third person, but it like moves with you. So it's almost like, it's hard to explain in an audio format, but like if the character of Lara, like if you put your hand out in front of you, like that distance from your eyes to your hand, and like you move your hand but you don't move your head, that's normally how like the camera would work. But this, it's like that distance, the camera's locked on a point, so that like when she bobs as she runs, the camera also bobs in the same way, and it's really jarring and like almost motion sickness inducing. It was like really, really weird that I don't remember from the first game, because I feel like if it was in the first game, like the original version, it would have bothered me like this. So I don't know, it was just really bizarre and kind of bummed me out, because it definitely hurt my experience a lot playing it. But just in general, like the exploration's really good in that game. The story becomes a little bit nonsensical at the end, like with the whole like Japanese army controlling the elements.
Really
it gets
weird.
a little Indiana Jones weirdness at the end that I didn't think was like totally necessary. But the combat's just really good, and I like that character of Lara, that take on the character and modernization.
Yeah, me too.
Getting a little bit away from like the TNA. I mean, she's still like a really hot British chick, so there is that, but like it's not nearly as bad as the original games, that's for sure.
Right.
With her like polygonal pointy boobs.
Yeah, she's like the original Booth babe.
Yes, exactly. But I'm super excited to dive into Rise of the Tomb Raider and kind of see the changes and updates that they made on that game. So I'm going to try to get to that this year. So we'll see what happens. So, I mean, anything else that you've been up to recently, or?
I've just been watching a lot of stuff on Giant Bomb. You mentioned the Facebook group. They've been putting out a lot of video features, so I've been trying to consume that content while putting furniture and stuff together.
Yeah,
they have a lot.
I would imagine
of really
that's like
stuff
good
going
background
on.
stuff.
Oh yeah, big time. So I'm way behind on my Game Grumps YouTube videos because Kara and I watch those together. I literally have like 15 or 16 of those that I need to watch. But I've been trying to keep up with the Giant Bomb stuff.
I'm like tangentially aware of Game Grumps. Do they do like sketches, or do they do reviews, or like what kind of stuff do they do?
Just commentary over gameplay.
Gotcha.
And it's funny commentary over absolute shit gameplay. That's what they specialize in.
Seems to be a common shtick nowadays.
Yeah, I rarely watch their videos because Aaron, the main guy, he's so bad at games that I can't watch him play anything, because like they're playing Sonic Unleashed right now, which is a total shit game, and like he keeps fucking up, and I'm sure the controls are bad. He's playing on the Wii, like it probably really sucks, but I can't watch him be terrible at the game and still find him funny. So like I can't watch those. I just put those to the side on my other monitor and I play a game or whatever, and Kara watches and then also remarks on how terrible he is at playing. Yeah.
One other thing that I just remembered, I tried to set up mods on Fallout 4 on my PS4.
Okay.
Because obviously, like, they updated the games that you could play with mods on Skyrim and Fallout 4.
Yeah.
And I really liked Fallout 4. It was my favorite game from 2015. I know a lot of people shit on it. I don't know why. I thought it was really good.
I don't know why either.
Like, I wanted an excuse, because I got the Platinum Trophy, and I wanted an excuse to go back to it, because I wanted to, like, experience the story again. And so I thought, oh, hey, mods would be a perfect like opportunity to do that. I knew on PS4 they were going to be limited because you could only use vanilla assets, but I was looking online to try to still like see, you know, is it still worth playing with mods? Like, are there enough on there that make it worthwhile? And the answer is kind of. Like, it certainly sucks that it's all vanilla assets, so like you can't do like robust quest mods. They can't do complete overhauls of how characters look. It's really just like tweaks on things, which is a little bit of a bummer, but people have found like some small ways to get around some of the other issues. And so I got like a good probably 30 to 40 mods that I thought would update the game enough to make it like feel fresh the second time. And I just couldn't get it to fucking load. Like, I couldn't get the game to go. And I mean, obviously, I'm not the most technically savvy person, but I modded the shit out of my Skyrim game and, like, watched tutorials. Oh, man, what was the dude's name? Because I could call him out.
XCal. Was that XCal or no?
Well.
Oh, MXR Mods.
No. Well, yes. I watch him to get ideas for mods. Oh, okay. But there's another guy, Gopher on YouTube. He does like tutorials of like how to, not how to make mods, but like how to mod your game, the kinds of things you need. Like, oh, you need to do this in your load order. These kind of mods don't go well together. All that kind of shit that like I'm sure people that play lots of modded games already know and have known for years, but I certainly didn't. And he was like really, really instructive. And so I was able to get Skyrim going. I put in too many mods. I had like 200 mods at once, and so like it would just crash over and over. But anyway, I figured like with Fallout, because there were so few mods and like they're not going to make a bunch of conflicting ones, it should be easier to get it going. And the way it's just set up, like, it gives you no indication of what isn't working. Like, the game just wouldn't load. So I would start a new game with all my mods going, and it would just sit at the loading screen, and it literally sat there for 10 minutes. Because I was like, maybe it takes a lot longer because of the mods to get it set up. And so I literally let it sit there for 10 minutes, and it's just spinning wheel. And so, like, okay. And I tried to move some of the games around, or some of the mods around in the load order, try it again. I followed as many of the instructions as I could, like, in the mod descriptions of, like, you should load this mod before this one, blah, blah, blah. But one of the great things on PC is there are multiple executables that will automatically put things in the right load order for you, and then you can make small tweaks for, issues that you know of. But for somebody like me that doesn't know that much about it, that kind of tool is really useful. On PS4, at least, there's nothing like that. It's like it's all manual. You have to know what things are going to conflict with what other things based on the descriptions of the mods, which is already a huge pain in the ass to navigate the UI. It's set up in a really shitty way. It's just, the whole thing was a disaster, and it really, really bummed me out because I wanted to play the game again and have an excuse to play it again.
Yeah.
But more so, I wanted to play around with mods on console because it's so much, theoretically, so much easier than dealing with it all on PC. And I just like playing games more with a controller than I do on PC with the mouse and keyboard. So
sure.
Short rant on Fallout 4 mods, and it makes me even more sad because I'm sure Skyrim's going to be the same way. And I just played through all of Skyrim and got the Platinum on the Special Edition, so I would want to take a break from that for a while anyway. But eventually I wanted to play around with mods in Skyrim, and I just don't know that it's going to be worth it on PS4, because I know there aren't going to be as many mods as on Xbox. And if the UI and the way it's set up is anything like this, it's like, I don't even know how people get it to fucking work. So bummed me out, that's for sure.
What you kind of have to do is, and this really sucks, because you can favorite a mod but not have it installed, correct?
Yes.
So what you kind of almost have to do is you favorite all the mods you want, and one at a time you install it, load it. If it works, great. Back out, install the next one, load it. That's kind of what you have to do.
The way the menus are set up, that would literally take hours. Because
I know.
when you back out of things, like, it boots you to the main mod menu where you have to scroll through all of them to find it. It's like, no. Like, if that is the solution they intended, fuck them. Like,
well,
there's no way that's how you should have to do it.
This is Bethesda we're talking about. Of course, it's not what they intended. They intended for Todd Howard to walk out on a stage and say, it just works. But, of course, it's not going to do that. It's a Bethesda game and a Bethesda service.
The whole thing just feels half-assed, and that's a shame.
Sure.
So, okay, we're going to move on. We got some news stuff to talk about. So first, just really quickly, because I'm excited about it, we got an announcement that the big DLC for Horizon Zero Dawn called The Frozen Wilds is now coming out on November 7th, which originally, like, they had placeholder date for December 31st and said it would be coming out in, like, fall or winter. So I'm super excited. I pre-ordered that during E3 because I wasn't paying attention.
You pre-ordered I didn't DLC.
I assumed I assumed it was coming out soon, and I was like, and it was $5 off because it was PlayStation Plus and they had a sale or whatever, and I was like, I know I'm going to want to play this, let me just pre-order it, assuming it was coming out in, like, September. And then when I saw the date, December 31st, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I just spent $15 for no reason. I could wait. Yeah. So I'm glad it's coming out, relatively soon, at least, like, before Christmas. So now that I've, like, officially finished that game, posted my review on the website, like, I'm done with it, I'm super, super excited to have an excuse to dive back into it.
For sure.
Beyond that, so this is, I mean, it's like, it's sad news, but, like, it's one of those things where, like, I get it. So EA has announced that their Montreal studio, which is the studio that was in charge of Mass Effect Andromeda, has been absorbed into EA Motive, which, if you remember, is the studio that Jade Raymond is running. I think they opened probably 2 years ago, maybe a little longer, and they assisted with the first Battlefront. They're assisting with the new Battlefront, but they're also working on their own Star Wars game. And I don't know if there are big details around it or not. Wait, is this the Amy Hennig game? Maybe it's the Amy Hennig game. I should have looked this up. But they're working on their own Star Wars game in addition to helping out with some other games. So EA Montreal has been absorbed into that studio, which, like, I would assume is going to mean layoff for some people, which is never a good thing. But it's one of those where like
will.
It's one of those where like Mass Effect Andromeda was a bad game. Like, I'm sorry, I know a lot of people liked it, but it was a complete hot mess when it launched. So many inexcusable bugs. And beyond that, like, because they put out a bunch of patches and fixed a lot of the smaller issues with the facial animations and, falling into different things in the world, like that kind of shit. But there were huge problems with that game that could not be fixed through patches. Like, the writing was atrocious in that game. So cheesy and lame. And, like, the characters weren't interesting. It was just... a lot of people would defend the combat, saying that it was the best of the Mass Effect series. I heartedly disagree. I thought that it was really floaty. The whole jetpack mechanic, I didn't think it worked very well. Good. It was like... I mean, combat has never been the thing in Mass Effect. I thought the combat in Mass Effect 3 was pretty good. Being able to,
it's surgical.
Yes.
It's very... it's... oh, God, what's the... I guess surgical is good enough description. Just, it's snappy, and it does what it needs to do. But this was, like, none of that. It was all over the place. Like, there was no... I felt I had very little control over what was going on at any given time, especially with the jetpack. That thing fucking fly you wherever the hell.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's sad if it leads to people losing their jobs. Like, I don't want that. But the potential positive is that more support for the Motive Studio will hopefully mean that we'll see their Star Wars games sooner, more resources, I would think. One of the dangers of this is... EA has started with their business of like getting a lot more of their studios involved in every game that happens, which is like more of what the Ubisoft model is, where like every studio that they have works on every game. And I firmly believe that has led to this like homogenous open world feel coming from Ubisoft games that I think is negative and makes me like care way less about the games coming out of Ubisoft because they're so similar in structure. So I hope that doesn't happen at EA, where it just becomes, because everybody works on everything, they all start to feel kind of the same.
Right.
I have more hope because EA works on so many different styles of games, from RPGs, third-person shooters, first-person shooters, some with story, some with multiplayer, that kind of thing. Whereas Ubisoft, like, their video game model in general is like open-world RPG mechanics. That is every game we make. Some of them are first person, some of them are third person, but they're all the fucking same. So hopefully EA can avoid that. That's just a potential concern I had. So we'll see. I'm still super excited for Motive Star Wars game. If it has any relation to the Star Wars game that they were working on with 1313, which the rumors have been the new game is inspired by that, and Amy Hennig's leading the writing for the game, and obviously she was in charge of the Uncharted story for a while, so a lot of faith for that studio, crossing my fingers. So also, this is a rumor. I don't believe it has been fully substantiated, but there was a rumor going around that Nintendo had put in a patent for a new Nintendo 64 controller. And so, seems kind of weird, but put in perspective, this would make sense for them to do if they were planning on launching an N64 Classic. So obviously they had the NES Classic. They soon, this year, are having the SNES Classic. So this would make sense in their timeline to be patenting an N64 controller to put in an N64 Classic next fall or Christmas. So... yeah. I don't know, like, how do you feel about the NES, SNES classics? Like, do you have any opinion on those?
I wish I had them. I think it's a really cool idea, especially because they still work with your old carts, you know?
Right.
Like, they have the games built in, but you can still plug your old carts in. That's, you know... I think there's a problem with controller cord length, like, right? You know, you need... They didn't have very long controller cords, so you kind of have to have the system pulled out from the TV a bit, you know, depending on your setup. So they could do with longer cords, which, you know, you can search for online and get those. But, you know, it's a smart idea to have all of these games kind of built in. Maybe it wasn't executed very well because, you know, they have kind of confusing libraries for the two of them. Some games they included and some they didn't. And I assume that will be the same case with the N64. But, I get it. They only want to do games that they have the rights for, or the rights are easy to, or the permission for, I should say, are easy to obtain. I bet the N64 Classic won't have any rare stuff on it. Mm-hmm. I can guarantee that. So that kind of stuff can get a little messy because those franchises and those series have been around for such a long time that things happen and makes that tough. But I think in concept, it's a really strong idea because as time goes on, it's harder and harder to find functioning and clean versions of those old consoles and game cartridges. So it's like this is a good way of keeping those games alive. Because digital media is absolutely the future. It's the best way to make things withstand the test of time, whereas those physical carts, like, they have batteries, so they hold the save, and those batteries go bad over time, and so you can't save your games on them anymore. And if you need to replace the battery without losing your game save, there's this whole weird process where you have to like hook up a supplementary battery power while you unplug the other one and then put the new battery in, and then you can unplug it all and it's okay. It's crazy. It's like those old arcade cabinets. It's the same kind of thing. What you had to do is, if you needed to transport an arcade cabinet but not lose the memory, you had to like hook it up somehow to some sort of a power switcher with a generator and carry the generator around with it. It's crazy. Like it's just like a crazy series of things you need to do in order to keep that stuff. So I think it makes sense for Nintendo to do. I think they've had supply issues in the past, which I really hope they don't do with the SNES Classic.
But they've had supply issues with a lot of their console launches. I mean, if you remember the Wii as well, like this,
that's just how
artificial
Nintendo
shortage. It's so dumb. Like, I feel like it doesn't work to their advantage.
Yeah, it has to, though, because otherwise, like, why would they be doing it that way? They have this massive corporation, all these think tanks. Like, someone somewhere along the road said this is the way it should be, and they have some evidence to back that up. Like, Nintendo would rather sell through their stock than have shit left over, and like I get that.
But it's not even that. It's not even that, because like with the NES Classic, say they made 100,000 of them, and they sold through those like instantly. There were hundreds of thousands of other people that wanted them. So it wasn't even like let's make 1 million and we'll end up selling 800K. It was, let's make 100,000 and then 600,000 people won't get them. Like, if it were me, I'd rather sell 7,000 more. Sorry, I'd rather have 100,000 left over than miss out on 700,000 sales. And obviously I'm pulling these numbers out of my ass, but like, I feel like there's a middle ground there that they're not hitting.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with the NES Classic, they weren't sure how it was going to be received, so they didn't make a lot of them. But what they should have done is then come in with a second line of them, which they didn't.
Second round,
which is confusing.
Yeah, they already fucking printed all of them. They put them on the whatever fucking child labor line and had all the little 12-year-old Japanese kids working in the sweatshops making those things. Like, why would they not make more of them?
Yeah, maybe it's a case of like they purchased the rights to produce this many number of these consoles, right? Because maybe the way rights work, it treats it like reproducing copies of franchises and stuff digitally, and so maybe there was some monetary negotiation, there's some contractual negotiation where you can, all right, this is how many you're producing, that's what you're paying us for, and so if they want to produce more, they have to track down those people and pay them again. Who knows?
I guess that's possible. We'll see with the SNES if it has a similar problem.
Yeah, what they have said,
just chalk it up to Nintendo.
So they came out and this is not going to be verbatim, I don't have it in front of me, but in my brain space, I recall them recently making a statement about that, because the whole Walmart thing happened. I tried to pre-order it through Walmart, and they canceled it. And then Nintendo came out and stated, these will be available for pre-order soon. Like, there will be plenty for pre-order, and we will be shipping a large number of them. I don't remember the exact phrasing they used, but a large number of them outside of the pre-order numbers to various retail markets. Who knows if that means they're still only doing one production line? You know, you never know with these people. But it's. I think the N64 Classic is also a strong idea. I think there are a lot of people who have an extreme amount of nostalgia and reverence for that console, especially.
And yes, there are several hard-hitting games that would be on there. You know, Donkey Kong 64, Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time,
if they can get Ray on board.
Because that was the second part of my point. Like, I feel like there aren't nearly as many Nintendo games for the N64 as there were for the NES, SNES. I feel like a lot of what they would need on the N64, you know, like something like GoldenEye, which they probably won't get the rights to. Something like the Rare games, which they probably won't get the rights to.
Right.
I just don't know. Like, I don't know how that works. I don't know how they're gonna get all of the games people want onto something like that.
Sure. And I definitely think, you know, like I said, part of the appeal of these consoles is having new hardware that can play your old stuff. Like, you can still plug your carts into it, and it's new.
Yeah, but how many people are buying them for that reason? Like, how many people have N64 carts laying around?
It's never going to be just for that reason, but it is an added feather in the cap, right? You know, like, people have boxes of these old N64 games, and like, yeah, my N64 broke, or I don't even know where it is. You know, I lost this piece to it, I lost that piece. Here's a chance to get all this shit bundled in one. You can still use your old stuff, so you have that mental security of knowing that you have a place to play these things, and it makes it, you know, that along with the included games, the new hardware, all that, it kind of bundles together to create something more worthwhile for the consumer. But yeah, I just saw on Facebook there's a Kickstarter for a next gen N64 controller, and it just looks like an Xbox gamepad, but in where the right analog stick would be, you have the C stick buttons and your A and B and stuff. So it has all the buttons of an N64 controller. It's just laid out like a normal gamepad, so you don't have the weird shape.
Okay. I was thinking it was the opposite, where it was like modern buttons laid out like the N64, and I was like, that seems like a terrible idea.
That's awful. But yeah, so there's
okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, there's a Kickstarter for it. It was already funded. It went up like 2 days ago, and it's like 4 or 5 times its goal already. Wow. And I want to say it's $20 and you get the controller.
So what's the usage for that? Like, how do you use it? Would people just be using it for ROMs on their PC or what?
Let me look at the prototype gallery. I don't think it's USB. I think it's the N64 plug.
You actually use it with your N64?
Correct.
That's a very small audience.
The C buttons are slightly larger for games that use C buttons for more than just camera angles, like Smash Bros. The shape is very comfortable, modern, yada yada yada.
Anyone that's using C buttons in Smash Bros. Is a tool.
Hey,
you're a poser.
Down C, man. Pikachu.
No.
They have 2 Z buttons as opposed to the 1. They're the bottom triggers, so you can hit it with either finger. Yeah, it is strictly for use with the N64 console. It does not have a USB functionality.
And how many backers do they have?
1,734 backers at $51,000 of their $13,000 goal.
Oh, okay. They were only asking for $13,000.
Yeah.
That makes a little more sense. Still, over 1,000 backers. Like, that's a lot of people that theoretically have N64 systems that they're going to be playing.
Or, you know, like, this will be a great solution for when the N64 Classic comes out. Maybe.
Unless the N64 Classic comes with, like, a wired N64 controller built into it.
I don't think they would do that. Because even the NES and the SNES don't have that. You plug the controllers in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They just have short cords. The ones that come with are short cords. I'm fairly certain those are not wired in.
I mean, as far like for me, as far as these systems go, I'm glad they exist for people that want them. And like, it's one of those things where like, yeah, I would love to have one. It's more just I'm old enough now and fiscally responsible enough now to know that I'm not going to use it Like, I'm not really going to sit down and spend hours playing all these old games.
Sure.
So I'm not going to go out and buy one. If they were more readily available, maybe like, because I know last year Kelly was trying to track one down to get me for Christmas. And like, yeah, I would have, like, yeah, as a Christmas gift, like that would be cool. But I'm not going to like go out of my way to try to pursue one or pre-order one or do whatever. That's just, doesn't speak to me enough.
Sure. Also, another feather in the cap of these, these newer takes on the systems is they have a modern standard video output, whereas the old consoles don't. So there's an ease of use. I'm pretty sure the NES and SNES Classic, they could just do HDMI. I'm pretty sure. That may be wrong. I might have to look that up.
Well, I mean, I would assume it's going to have something easy to hook up to your HD TV.
Right.
Cool. Well, moving on into the world of TV and film, so a couple like little quick things that I thought were cool. Fox recently put out an image of Josh Brolin in Deadpool 2. He's playing Cable, and so you saw the Deadpool movie, yes?
Yeah. It's okay.
I really liked it. I'm pumped for the second one. I assumed back then that it was going to be Cable and Deadpool. Very famous long-running comic line that I loved called Cable and Deadpool. So it definitely makes sense that this is the direction they're going. So they just put out a photo of him. The only reason I bring it up is, one, because he looks cool in it. He looks very real to what I would want Cable to look like in quote-unquote real life. And two, I just find it a little annoying that with as many fucking actors and actresses as there are in the world, why Josh Brolin needs to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men Cinematic Universe. And I don't know. I don't know why that kind of thing bothers me. It just does. And like, even going back, like, and granted, again, it's two different studios making these, but Chris Evans, Captain America. Before that, he was Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four franchise. Yeah. It's like I don't want to take opportunities away from these actors because, I think Chris Evans is really good as Captain America. Josh Brolin's a phenomenal actor. I'm sure he's going to be really great as Cable. He's barely done anything as Thanos, so I can't really speak to that. But like, I don't know why it bothers me. It just kind of does. The bigger problem is something like between the X-Men and Marvel movies where they had Quicksilver in the Avengers movie and Quicksilver in the X-Men movie, played by two different characters, two completely different actors, two completely different takes on the character. Like, that seems spiteful. Like, they did it on purpose to piss off the other studio kind of thing. Versus this is more just like, I don't know. I just find it a little annoying. Like, you couldn't find someone else other than Josh Brolin to play Cable. It just seems weird to me. Although, by that same coin, Ryan Reynolds played Green Lantern, which he was, that movie was garbage, but he is a perfect fit for Hal Jordan and a perfect fit for Deadpool. So I can't like hold that standard super against him because I'm glad he's both characters. And I'm glad he got to keep being Deadpool after that atrocity that was X-Men Origins Wolverine. But I don't know. Yeah, so I just bring it up for those two reasons. If you haven't seen the picture, just Google it. He looks badass. I'm really excited for that movie.
Yeah.
They being Disney have also announced more casting for their live-action Lion King movie, which I'm still like, I don't know how the fuck they're gonna do this,
right?
Because they did their live-action Jungle Book, which obviously there were CG animals in that movie, but it was
there aren't any
centered
people
on
in Lion King,
right? Yes, it was centered on like, and I haven't looked into it enough to like know exactly what they're doing. I'm sure it's still going to be primarily voiceover. I doubt it's going to be like the Broadway adaptation of Lion King where it's people in suits or anything, like a bunch of colorful wigs.
What if it's like real animals, like when like the lion is like, they give them food to like, chew while they talk?
Homeward Bound.
Yeah.
Where they just they animate the mouths.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so good.
I'm not sure they could get real life lions to do what they want them to do, hanging off cliffs. But the only real reason I bring this up is because the actual cast is really, really strong and makes me because like Jungle Book, it was directed by Jon Favreau, who I like. I think he's a good director. He directed the original Iron Man and Iron Man 2, I think, and he's also directing this new Lion King movie. But I'm like, I don't really give a shit about these, to be honest with you.
Me
like, I
neither.
saw the live action Beauty and the Beast, and it was terrible. But I'm more interested in this now based on the cast. So Donald Glover, who a lot of people know from Community and now from the FX show at Atlanta, is playing Simba. And James Earl Jones as Mufasa. Perfect casting. John Oliver, who, if you don't know who that is, he I think was on the Daily Show. He's a British comedian. He was doing stand up for a while, and now he has his own show. I think it's called Last Week Tonight. I think it's on HBO, maybe. I don't know, but he's a really funny, really intelligent guy. British, so he works as Zazu. Seth Rogen's playing Pumbaa. Billy Eichner from Parks and Rec or Billy on the Street is Timon, and he's fucking hilarious. I am already afraid. I should have looked up how you pronounce this dude's name because I'm sure I'm going to do it wrong. But Chituel Ifor, I'm so sorry for butchering that. But he was in Selma. He played Martin Luther King Jr. in that. Phenomenal actor. He's playing Scar. And then, obviously, Jon Favreau's directing. So, like, the actual cast of the movie, I think, is really strong. No idea how they're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
It obviously, is very early on if they're still announcing casting. But thought it'd be interesting to bring up. And I'm curious to see how that turns out. I do want to see The Jungle Book because I heard it was actually surprisingly good. It's just one of those where, like, I don't know that I really care about modern adaptations of classic Disney movies that don't need to be remade. Like, literally, The Lion King is not only one of the best Disney movies, but one of the greatest films ever made. Like, why do you need to do this? But that's just me. Staying on the Disney side of things, kind of a larger announcement that's come out. They did their quarterly earnings call where they kind of announce how they're doing financially, some of their plans for the future. And the earnings call, I guess, wasn't great. Like they had shown, I think they had shown a loss, but they made an announcement that they are, over the next several years, pulling all of their content from existing streaming services like Netflix and launching their own. So they're going to have two separate streaming services, one for ESPN and one for Disney content, being like their live action and animated movies, the Disney Channel show or stuff, and like Disney XD or whatever, that kind of content. No idea.
Sucks, man.
Yeah, I mean, no idea like how much it's going to cost or like if there's going to be any limitations or if you're going to have like a full access to all of their back catalog or if it's going to come in and out. No idea what that is going to look like. But very interesting move by them. Obviously, Disney is one of the largest companies on the planet. They own fucking everything. But it is a bummer to not be able to see that stuff on the existing streaming platforms that we're paying for. But in this move to everyone cutting cable and making it more a la carte, this kind of thing was bound to happen. You're already seeing it with, even like a network like Fox has their own streaming service. They still have stuff on Hulu and that kind of thing, but they have their own service. And eventually, because this is the future we've decided we want, everything's going to be its own thing. You're going to be paying for 20 different subscription services, and they're probably going to be more expensive than cable was because that's the way shit works. But, it definitely is a bummer. I'm curious to see how they put this together. And obviously it won't launch for several years at this point. I'm honestly a lot more interested in the ESPN side because I don't have cable. I don't want to pay for it. And so I don't get to watch any ESPN. And because, I like sports. I like watching SportsCenter. I like watching games and seeing that kind of thing. It's not something that I would be super into, but I could potentially see myself investing in a monthly subscription to only watching ESPN and having a little more like on-demand a la carte content. I think could be interesting. But after they made this announcement, which I thought was really fascinating, and I'm sure other things were implicated in this, but their stock went down after this announcement. And I think it was just because the financial investment required in this, and it's going to take several years. And obviously their television brand has not been as strong. I know Disney XD does pretty well on the cartoon side, and obviously their acquisition of the Star Wars franchise, of Marvel, have been, like really, really huge financial wins for them and bring in so much fucking money. I'm not sure why the stock would go down. I guess it's just because Netflix is such a powerhouse when it comes to streaming services that kind of separating from them could be dangerous. I don't know. I'm not sure what the logic was. But
not
Marvel,
for Disney. If anyone can do that,
well,
it's
yeah,
Disney.
yeah, we'll see. Marvel has actually announced that they have made their first acquisition, which I think is fascinating and a really interesting direction for them to be taking. So the thing they have purchased is Millarworld, which, for people that aren't aware, which is probably a lot, Millarworld is a comic book company created by Mark Millar, who he has been writing comics for decades at this point, was a huge writer in Marvel and DC, and kind of started his own thing. So he is the creative behind Kick-Ass, The Kingsman, Secret Service, Wanted, and obviously those comics have made successful transitions to film, and so it makes sense for Marvel to now purchase that IP to theoretically turn into their own television series, movies, etc. So
You mean Netflix?
Yes, what did I say? Did I say
Marvel.
Disney? Oh, yes, Netflix. It would be really crazy if Marvel bought them. But yeah, so this was like I mean, from an entertainment industry enthusiast such as myself, this is like fascinating to me because Marvel, or damn it, now I'm on my head about it. Netflix has been so focused on creating original content in the last several years, and they've been so successful at it. You can see they're willing to spend less money now on external content, keeping it on their service. And obviously they've put less of a focus on their on-disc side of things, which is where they originally started. And
Right.
with so many competitors like Hulu and Amazon and all these solo services, they're clearly not spending as much money to try to keep those things on Netflix. They're willing to let stuff like Scrubs or South Park or The Simpsons or these other big tentpole series go to their competitors because they're investing in their own content. And it's been successful. Like, Netflix makes so much fucking money, or actually the rumor is that they're hugely in debt because of all the investments that they've made, but they make money. And Netflix is like the icon for streaming services, and they have been for a really long time. So I just think it's really interesting to see them go into the acquisition market versus purely creating things on their own. They're now acquiring other IP to then turn into their own series. So this could potentially have like really far-reaching implications of like, because like I could see something, because you know Mark Millar, he's also behind a really long-running series called Jupiter Circle. And that series, I don't read it. I'm relatively familiar with it. It's like a superhero, a superhero world, basically. And that, to me, would make a really good TV show. And so I'm sure that's some of their methodology behind acquiring Millarworld. So anyway,
Okay.
I just think it's really interesting, and I'm curious to see where this kind of thing goes. Not only with this acquisition, but like, is this going to be a new model for them? Are they going to take some of their money they've been spending on original content, put it into acquisitions, or are they going to do both? That kind of thing. I'm really interested to see the long-term strategy of Netflix.
Yeah, me too. That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. So final thing I wanted to talk about, and this is more of like a funny story, but week or so ago, Niantic held a big Pokemon Go event in Chicago, and it was a disaster.
It was.
So they talked about this. I heard about it first on the Giant Bombcast because I played Pokemon Go for a couple days when it came out, thought, this is a bad video game, and then never touched it again. But apparently there's like a decent amount of people that still regularly play it. I don't understand why. There's nothing to that game. Like, you can't trade with people. You don't really fight with people. Like, so there's nothing to it.
It's an excuse to get out and like be out. That's the impetus behind it. It's about getting out.
And originally, yes, like when it launched as a touchstone experience of like being part of the zeitgeist, riding around, going to different gyms, going into the real life woods to catch something, like all that stuff is cool. But that came out a long fucking time ago. It came out like a year ago. I'm just surprised this many people are still invested in it. And clearly Niantic and Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are still making shit tons of money on it.
Yeah.
But story is that they had this big event where they were going to be like have a bunch of legendary Pokemon for people to catch, and it was like just a big meetup, and they were gonna have little games and shit to do. And again, it's not even a video game. I don't know what you're gonna do at this event, but it didn't go so hot. There were big time internet issues, which Niantic has come out and started throwing some shade and passing the buck to internet service providers and saying, like, this isn't on us. Like, there were a couple bugs when people got here, but, like, we fixed them during the event. Like, if you couldn't connect to Pokemon Go, blame your cell phone carrier. And so Verizon has come back and been like, yo, we did everything we needed to do. It's your guys' fault. Like, at this event, people were having problems attaching to Pokemon Go. Not YouTube or the internet. It was your platform people were having trouble with, not the internet. So fuck off. So it's been funny to see, like, passing the blame. And obviously, like,
brands
I don't wish ill
getting at it.
I don't wish any ill will on anybody that went there. And Niantic has already said, like, they're refunding people's $20 tickets and giving them some, like, in-game stuff as a apology. So, like, I'm not, like, happy that people had a bad time. It's just like, how do you fuck something like that up so poorly?
I know.
And I guess they had another big event that they have canceled, but they've planned a couple other ones that they're still going through with. So hopefully they plan a little bit better. I guess there were a shit ton of people there, but no more than they expected to be there.
Right,
because
they sold tickets.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you had to buy the tickets ahead of time. They knew how many people were going to be there.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they could mess that up so bad. Whoever's fault it was, I'm more inclined to believe it was Niantic based on what I've been hearing from the other stuff. But regardless, it seems pretty nuts that an event that big would go so poorly.
I know.
When all it requires is internet service.
Yep.
So now, to wrap up the episode, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, the Hate of the Week. Hate of the Week. So, in past episodes, this is a nice, fun platform for me to rant a little bit and for Kyle to kind of, like, reel me back in with some positivity. And it's been a lot of, like, external stuff and things that piss me off about society or the internet or whatever it is. And I kind of wanted to turn it a little bit inwards today. Be a little more self-deprecating, humanize myself so I don't seem like a complete monster to the internet. But today I want to talk about something I like to call restless creativity. And this is, like, I didn't, like, coin this term. I'm sure it exists other places. I'm not putting a TM at the end of it. But I feel like it speaks to something that I have been affected by a lot in the past several years. And that's just this kind of, like, meandering from creative outlet to creative outlet. And I think it stems from a couple different things. One is my tendency to, like, want to try new stuff. So, like, I'll get a little bit bored once I feel comfortable with something. Just to use, like, as an example. So, like, I started a blog several years ago just on, like, a blogspot site through Google. And I was just doing some random reviews and posts and some stream of consciousness stuff just as, like, a creative outlet for myself. And I had, like, a decent, I mean, not like a big following, but a decent following for me, like people that expanded beyond my friends, which to me was success. And I eventually just kind of got bored of it because it wasn't challenging me in any new ways. And so I stopped doing it and I started a YouTube channel. Because I know, Kyle, you had a YouTube channel. It seemed like a lot of fun, and I thought I'd learn some new skills. And I did that for a while, and then it got a little overwhelming because of work and some personal stuff. And so I wasn't enjoying it as much, so I kind of just quit that. And then I would, work on like a TV show I was trying to develop. I'd start working on a script, and then I'd hit like a wall in that, like a little creative block, and so I'd kind of quit. And then I'd move on to the next thing. And so now here I am with Shea Hates Everything. And I guess kind of like, for me, I feel like I've moved past that in a lot of ways because I'm specifically looking at Shea Hates Everything as like a long-term investment, not as something that is purely a creative outlet. Like, I'm looking at it more as a job, and it certainly is a creative outlet. It's a hobby. I'm not making any money on it, but I know I'm gaining a lot of valuable skills from it and expanding kind of like my reach and my audience and my quote-unquote brand or whatever. And it is just like a fun thing that I'm doing, but I think part of what's helping is looking at it like a job where I have certain goals and expectations for myself, and I meet them or I don't, and then I readjust and move forward. And also focusing on trying new things inside of Shea Hates Everything, like this podcast. So it's less like, oh, I start this blog, I reach a wall, so I quit and look at a different avenue. It's more like, this is my chosen platform to experiment creatively, and so I'm going to experiment as part of Shea Hates Everything. I'm going to do different kinds of posts. I'm going to talk about different kinds of things. I'm going to start like this podcast and experiment with this podcast. Not like, well, Shea Hates Everything is done. Now I'll go do this other thing. So I guess like at the core of it, it's kind of just a frustrating personality trait for myself that I'm working on. But I feel like it's not uncommon for people that are more creatively minded, that like to express that creativity, to try to do a bunch of different things at once, to try to do a bunch of just different things in general. And especially now that I have such little free time, I really feel like I need to make the most of it. And so I really am like trying to hone in on exactly what I want out of my creative outlet and making that happen. It's a really like long-winded explanation of just like kind of like what I've been thinking about, especially the past couple of weeks. So like, I know you kind of have gone through a couple different creative phases for yourself, Kyle. Like, any thoughts on that or like disagreement on any of that?
No, I think everything you say is really valid. Yeah, that's a lot. So it's like there's a difference between like having an idea and like a creative outlet and completely dropping it, and like you said, kind of finding new ways, like you're doing with Shea Hates Everything, to keep that idea alive in different forms, like this podcast.
Right.
So that's different. I agree. Like, this feels different than your past creative outlets, and that is a core idea creative outlet for you that it's not modular, but it's adaptive, right?
Yeah.
You can go about it in so many more different ways. So because creativity is I mean, for creativity is something that's very difficult to force. That's why I always had a hard time like writing papers and yada yada yada, because like my last minute papers that I would write in college, it's complete crap. Right, because it was forced and it wasn't creative. But the ones I would do, like I had enough time and I was really feeling writing. So yeah, I'm gonna write this, and then those came out really well. So creativity for me, and I feel like a lot of people, is a difficult thing to force. So having a core idea that is adaptable, right? Because before, your core idea was, I'm gonna do YouTube, and what can you do on YouTube? Play games and make videos. Okay, what else? You can play games and make videos. Like, that's it, right? But this idea, this core idea of Shea Hates Everything as a brand, there's so many different things you can do with it, that as you feel your creativity pulling you in different directions, that lends itself well to that. It's a good setup for that kind of stuff, so that you don't get too burned out, and when you do, you can still contribute to the brand, but in different ways. So I think the Shea Hates Everything as a brand is a good investment of your time, and I haven't necessarily found that kind of brand, quote unquote, for me yet, and I don't know that I'm going to, because I have my fingers in a lot of different pies right now, creatively.
Yeah.
And that's made it tough. I do worry about getting burned out on the theater thing at the high school. And I think it's most people don't do the same thing their whole lives. I don't believe, they kind of bounce around a bit from time to time. I think that's natural. I think that's normal. Companies, they always try to incentivize people, to work there for 50 plus years, whatever. They want you in for the long haul because you're an investment for them. But I think that's kind of counter to human nature for most people, to live your life that way, kind of the same thing day to day. And that can really drive people crazy. But yeah, I think So just to sum up my ideas about it, I think Shea Hates Everything is a good way for you to combat your restless creativity, or not combat it, but to accommodate,
kind of funnel it. Yeah.
Your restless creativity.
Because even like when we talk about like the YouTube stuff, I've played around with the idea of like starting a vlog series as part of Shea Hates Everything and like experimenting with that. But again, like it's part of this platform that I have created for myself to be able to try different things and like see if it works. And like I don't have a problem, like for example, had we started this podcast and it been like, nah, like this format doesn't work, or like I don't like expressing these specific thoughts in this specific way, then fine. But I don't want to, my thing, and which is why this is my hate of the week, I don't want to stop doing things because of either like my laziness or being afraid of putting myself out there, or like hitting a wall and not being able to fight through it, and so then I just stop. Like that's a lot of why I would quit things in the past, and why I honestly feel like I never got where I really wanted to in like actual entertainment and acting, and even working on the Dream Writers project. Like since then, that's really opened up my eyes a lot, and I gained so much experience about writing and pitching a television show, and like all the work that goes into that. And I feel like I have a lot better of a platform to build upon than I did before. So I've actually like fairly recently, I thought it was like, what, let me just take a week off from writing a new post on, like, instead of writing 2 or 3 new posts for the blog, let me work on one of my television show ideas instead. And so I just kind of spent my time on that with no real goal, just as like a fun outlet and a different way of thinking about things. And I think that's going to be super valuable for me, because it's not like I'm not putting pressure on myself of like, if I'm going to spend time working on this, I need to see a return on it, which is like kind of how I feel about the website at times of like, is this post going to get views? And if it isn't, is it really worth my time to do it? Or even like I have three different ideas for a television show. And so it's like, which one would be the easiest to sell? That's the one I should work on. Like that kind of methodology. And that I feel like is so wrong. So I'm really trying to get away from that, which is, even on my site, like I recently posted, like I wrote almost a 2,000 word review of Horizon Zero Dawn, a game that came out 6 months ago. Like, and like, I'm proud of the review. I feel really good about it. I really took my time with it, and I, spent like 3+ weeks actually working on it, rewriting it. I feel really good about the review. It's not topical. Like, like so many fewer people have read that than my like theorizing on the most recent episode of Game of Thrones. Like that post that I put up took a lot less time. It was still fun to write, and I put research into it. But like that post was so much more popular than my Horizon Zero Dawn review has been. But like I got more creative fulfillment out of the Horizon piece. And so like I just want to do that kind of thing. It's certainly like from a marketing perspective, and not to get into like the inside baseball of it, but like if I want to build this thing, I have to play to my audience. Like I have to know the kinds of things they want to see and give that to them just through my voice, which is why, like, because, I write reviews every week for the Game of Thrones episodes, and I typically will throw in a little bit of theorizing in the review of like something we might expect to see in the next episode, or like this little thing that was said, what this might mean long term. And I think I'm pretty good at that stuff. I got a lot of good feedback on that. So I was talking to Kelly about it, and she was like, spin that off into its own post. Like, people might not be super interested in your review of it because they can get that anywhere, but they can't get that specific take on this theory or this line that was said. They can't get that anywhere. So put that in a specific post by itself, and I feel like you're going to get more traffic, which definitely happened. And that traffic led to more views on that review. And again, like I don't want to like go too deep into like the back end of it, but just that kind of thinking as a marketer when I'm at work, I get it. But once I turn that side of my brain off and do it for me, like as a hobby to get enjoyment out of it, I don't want to do that shit. Like I don't want to think about using keywords that will show up in Google. I don't want to think about like making the title a question to get more people to click. I don't want to do that shit because it doesn't feel real to me. When I'm at work and I can put on that hat, it's fine. But when I come home, I just want to put my voice out there and people to enjoy it for that reason. And one, that's unrealistic. And two, like who gives a fuck about me right now. Like, no one knows who the hell I am. No one gives a shit about my opinion right now. I think they should, and they will,
get one
but
of
they
those
don't.
Sarah Ha whatever accounts and see what people say about you, Shea.
Oh, is that like all like just anonymous stuff?
Yes, it's a
That
dumpster
terrifies
fire.
me. I know I'm a big enough asshole, and my sarcasm does not come across well to a lot of people. I would be terrified of what people would say about me. I'd rather just put it out there like this, and if you got a problem with me, come to my face. But yeah, so that's just, it's less of like a rant hate of the week and more just like it's a personality trait that I've identified on myself that I think is really frustrating and holds me back a lot, that I think talking about out loud, when I think, you know, there are plenty of people out there that can kind of commiserate a little bit with it, especially when it comes to like the experimentation and creativity and kind of that unfulfillment that fulfillment that is lacking. But also putting it out on the internet might help me, you know, rein it in and hold myself a little more responsible for it. So
Yeah.
just some thoughts and ideas, and it's just me, you know. It's just me, you guys. Just putting myself out there.
Take it or leave it. You know?
No, don't take it or leave it, because you'll probably leave it. Please take it. Please, God, take
Just take it.
So there you go, everybody. That is going to be the end of this episode 6 of the Shea Hates Everything podcast. Thanks for listening. It was a bit of a meatier episode. It's been a while, so we had a lot of stuff to talk about. We are going to do our best to now stick to our every other week. We're going to plan a little better for the future, but you know, things do happen, and like, you know, especially
houses
Kyle,
get bought, people get
houses get
engaged.
bought, people get engaged, fantasy football starts. So yeah, we'll keep you guys updated, and we'll be back with even more in the future. If you have any thoughts or opinions, send an email to info@sheahateseverything.com. You can also submit questions and stuff to us to talk about on the podcast. Or, you know, if you don't want to take the effort to write an email, you can always send a message on Facebook, or, you know, you can check out the Shea Hates Everything Facebook page, leave a comment on there, and I check it regularly. So thanks everybody for listening. Kyle, thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
As always. And we'll see y'all, or I guess we'll talk to y'all in the next episode. Peace out.